What's up, y'all? I'm Drew Cameron, and welcome back to another Unload session where I go over my thoughts, talk about fatherhood, life, and business. So, the topic of the day comes from another video I posted. Somebody made a comment, a guy by the name of Carlos Verdon, and his comment made me go check out his page. When I checked out his page, he's talking similarly about being a strong man, fatherhood, just being a man, you know what I mean, and what it takes. And I think somebody put in the comments something about toxic masculinity, right? And I started thinking like, dang, am I attracting men? Am I putting out a message that is toxic? So I'm a researcher. I dove in to find out what the definition of toxic masculinity is, and I'm going to read it. According to Cooper's, toxic masculinity includes aspects of hugo-demonic masculinity that are socially destructive, such as misogyny, homophobia, greed, and violent domination. These are contrasted with more positive traits such as pride, ability to win at sports, to maintain solidarity with friends, succeed at work, or provide for one's family. So, toxic masculinity, when I further read it on Wikipedia, went to explain that coping with prison time, social isolation, aggression, suppressing vulnerable emotions are all traits to cope with in prison or just in any situation where, you're threatened and you're constantly under siege and attack. So bullying, like if you got sons, may be a form of toxic masculinity for their peers. Domestic violence, of course, directed towards boys or women or anybody, and often our violent socialization is usually violent socialization for boys and produces psychological trauma. Okay, so this is just my opinion. Once again, as a man raising boys and a daughter and raising them with my wife in a household. I believe that I understand what toxic masculinity is, but I do not believe, I would say 80% of the men online who are talking about being driven, being prideful, being confident, and standing on some principles is a means to deem toxic masculinity. People will constantly go after the things that threaten them, right? And this is just something to think about. If you're extra confident, if you're extra, prideful, you know what I mean? Not having an ego, but even if you have an ego, like all these words we use, it's always open to interpretation and a person's perspective and perception. So don't get me wrong, those words and those definitions have meaning. But you have to understand where the person is coming from who says those things to you. I remember I have a buddy of mine, and, certain individuals that he knew and were around said he had an ego, right? Or said he was conceited, too confident. And it bothered me because this is people that are supposed to love him, and they tell him he's too confident, he's too sure of himself. That's never a bad thing as a man who's the leader of his household. Now, they could have used some better words, right? There's other words that they could possibly have said, to maybe help him or, describe what they were trying to tell him. But to tell somebody they're overly confident and stuff, you gotta really understand the words and the definitions of what you're saying. Because in my book, that's a strong, confident man who knows what he's doing and he's sure of himself. But when he was told that, it made him second guess everything. It made him decide to be a different person. And I've had that happen to me before as well. People you love, people that love you, they're so quick to tell you the negative things and never give you the positive things. And so when you are a man, you're in charge of a lot of responsibilities, right? And when you're a leader of a household, And that's why having a strong faith in God, because I know with all the self-development, I know with everything that people are putting out here, including myself, sometimes we miss the part of you can't have self-development. You can't be strong without a strong relationship with God, right? Because where you're weak, that's where he fills in the gaps. That's just my take on everything. I've been doing reading, I've been doing a lot of research, you know, and a lot of things that I'm understanding is that as a man, yeah, we're built strong. We have our natural traits, our natural characteristics that embody who we are, right? I'm more of a strategist, I'm more of a thinker, a planner, you know what I mean? And execution is sometimes hard, but I can make a plan in a heartbeat. And I'm working on that. So now I know when you know your strengths, you can continue to double down on them. You know what I mean? And then when you know your weaknesses, you can ask for more help. You can ask more help from God. You know what I'm saying? You can reach out to mentors and reach out to people who have that skill. There's a book, Who Not How by Dan Sullivan. And it talks about, finding somebody who can fill in the gaps of what you can't do. And so anybody that's building anything, anybody that's doing anything great knows that you have to invoke the help of others. So back to my whole topic about toxic masculinity. I don't believe 90% of the people, maybe even 99% of the men online who are preaching and talking to other men is toxic. What I believe is it's a certain level of people that have determined that an overly confident man, a man who, based off the definition now, we're not abusers, we're not domestic violent, we're not violent in that aspect. We're violent when we need to, and it's a quote, I forgot his name, that doctor or whatever. He's always saying great, amazing, scientific things. And one of the things he said is, paraphrasing here, something about a man that is capable of violence, who doesn't basically perform violence, is a dangerous man. And that we shouldn't be afraid of a man that is capable of violence, right? We should be afraid and understand that that man is not using that said violence. And why? Because we could all do that. So when you think about toxic masculinity, I hope that definition helps you and breaks it down to what it actually is, because toxic masculinity and people thinking that because you're confident, because you talk with a little aggression, because you have a certain way about yourself. We just read the definition of what toxic masculinity is. And in different aspects and different reasons, being in the military, right? Being in prison, right? Being in the world, not to even go there, but being a black man in America, at times, would it not say that this is an environment that causes you to show a little bit more aggression, to show a little bit of things? But from my understanding, nothing that was just said when we read the definition of toxic masculinity sounds like any of the men on the internet talking, because that's all we're doing is we're talking. We're getting our feelings out there. The modern man is not toxic. The modern man is vocal. He expresses himself, and that's what people don't like. So people don't like to hear what is the truth and what it is, and so they try to shut you up. So it's just something to think about. What is toxic masculinity? This has been an unload session. As I always say, the road ahead is long and hard. No place for the weak. You must be a warrior. Attack the day.